What I remember having been brought up to believe is that homosexuality is a sin, and more specifically, what I was thinking about it was, and I'm really almost ashamed to say that, the kind of sex homosexual people have is perverted.
Frank Schaefer is an unlikely hero of the LGBT movement. He was raised in a fundamentalist Baptist home in Germany and met and married his wife when they were teenagers. Not long after, Frank moved his family to the U.S. to work as a translator, but started to feel a call to the ministry. That call would expose him to a different way of thinking.
There were several gay students that I met, and that sort of caused me to really look at what was written about human sexuality and especially homosexuality and how it relates to those scripture passages that I had known all my life. And I thought, oh, so there is a whole other way of seeing this.
He was sent to conservative congregations in rural Pennsylvania, but kept his new views on homosexuality to himself. That is, until a parent of one of Tim's friends called Frank to inform him that his son was suicidal over a struggle with his sexual orientation.
I think what it took is really for my son to come out to me. That really was the experience that changed me the most. It really put me in a crisis, and that came totally unexpectedly because I thought I had moved on the subject of homosexuality, but as a parent I asked myself, what kind of life was he going to have, and what about grandchildren, and what would this mean for him and for us as a family? But it also caused me to think about my own future as a pastor. Knowing that my denomination was conservative on that issue, and the church I was serving at the time too. So I was like, wow, so once news about this comes out, what is this going to mean for my life as well, for my ministry? And I was struggling with that.
By the time Tim asked his father to officiate his wedding, 2 more of Frank's children had come out as gay. But in the end, the decision to marry his son may have cost Frank his career.
Frank Schaefer was defrocked late last year after officiating his son Tim's same-sex wedding in Massachusetts in 2007. This was in violation of the United Methodist Church doctrine, where Schaefer had ministered for more than 20 years.
Looking back, that's probably the only regret I have, is that I didn't say more. And just recently it occurred to me, how many of those kids out there in the congregation, were struggling with their sexuality, and maybe they were just waiting to hear a word of affirmation.
The United Methodist Church said that Frank broke church law. That fallout brought national attention to a very private family. And while many things have changed, Frank's call to preach has not.
So I stick with what feels good to me, and that is just to share my story and just talk to a lot of LGBT folks and their families, their supporters, and taking what they share with me and really incorporate that into my message to the church and to the world.